Hello everyone. This is Six Path Weeb, and I welcome you all back to the channel. Today, we dive deeper into our fanfiction universe with an intense and mind-bending continuation. What if Uzu was reborn by Rinnegan Naruko? Part 2. In the previous part, we witnessed the rebirth of Uzu through the overwhelming power of the Rinnegan Naruko, a twist that reshaped destiny itself. Now, the consequences begin to unfold. How will the shinobi world react to this miracle? What new powers will awaken? And most importantly, what price must be paid for defying fate? Expect deeper lore, high-stakes battles, emotional conflicts, and a storyline that challenges everything we thought we knew. Disclaimer: the content on this channel is for entertainment and discussion purposes only. I do not own any of the anime footage used in my videos. All rights and credits go to their respective creators and copyright holders. With that said, settle in and prepare yourselves. Let's begin. Rain fell softly over the rooftops of Konohagakure on the day Naruko Uzumaki returned home. The villagers were used to gentle rainstorms like this. They walked through the streets with umbrellas and straw hats, chatting about errands and meals, unaware that something important was about to unfold. High atop the great village wall stood four cloaked figures. They did not look threatening, rather, they seemed watchful, like guardians waiting for the right moment. At the center stood a young woman whose bright spirit could not be hidden, even beneath her hood. For a brief second, her eyes shimmered with a warm crimson glow before the fabric shaded them once more. This was Naruko Uzumaki. She had grown taller, stronger, and wiser during her journey away from the village. With a calm gesture of her hand, she and her companion stepped forward and quietly entered Konoha. Inside the Hokage's office, Lady Tsunade gazed out the window. Tsunade folded her arms thoughtfully. "Something feels unusual," she murmured. Shizune tilted her head. "Is something wrong, Tsunade-sama?" Tsunade turned around, looking unusually serious. "I was playing a game of solitaire," she admitted. "And I won." Shizune blinked. She knew Tsunade rarely won such games. When she did, it usually meant change was coming. Not bad change, necessarily, just something unexpected. Before they could speak further, a shinobi arrived with hurried steps. "Tsunade-sama, one of our patrol teams found signs of unusual movement near the forest border. No one was harmed, but it seems someone entered the land of fire quietly." Tsunade nodded firmly. "Place the teams on alert, but keep everyone calm. There is no reason for panic. And ask the Hyuga clan to assist with observation. Their vision may help us understand what is happening." Shizune bowed and hurried off. At the Hyuga compound, Hinata trained beneath the falling rain. The cool drops mixed with quiet tears she hadn't meant to shed. Today was Naruko's birthday. For many years, people had misunderstood Naruko. They had feared her without trying to know her. But Hinata had always believed in her. She knew Naruko's heart was kind and determined. A servant approached carefully. "Hinata-sama, the elders wish to speak with you." Hinata nodded and followed him inside. Something about the air felt tense, but she lifted her chin bravely. If Naruko were here, she would walk forward without hesitation. Inside the meeting room, the elders sat in a row. They spoke sternly about responsibility and tradition. Hinata listened respectfully, though her heart felt heavy. Suddenly, the doors burst open, not violently, but with surprising force as a gust of wind swept through the hall. A swirl of white and gray cloth appeared in the doorway. The room fell silent. A figure stepped forward, removing her hood. Bright golden hair framed a familiar face. Blue eyes sparkled with warmth and confidence. "Naruko," Hinata whispered. Naruko Uzumaki smiled gently. She wore a new cloak lined with swirling patterns inspired by her clan. She had returned not with anger, but with purpose. "I'm sorry I took so long," Naruko said softly. "I had a lot to learn. About myself. About being strong in the right way." The elders exchanged uncertain glances. Naruko continued, her voice steady. "Strength isn't about control or fear. It's about protecting others and giving them the freedom to grow. I came back because I want to help Konoha become brighter than ever." Her words were not loud, but they carried through the room like sunlight breaking through clouds. Hinata stepped beside her. "I believe in her," she said quietly. Tsunade soon arrived, having sensed the change in the village's energy. She looked at Naruko carefully, then smiled. "You've grown." Naruko grinned sheepishly. "I had good teachers. And good friends waiting for me." Outside, the rain began to slow. Clouds parted just enough for warm light to spill over the rooftops. Naruko walked through the village streets openly now. Some villagers stared in surprise. Others hesitated. But instead of frowning or shouting, Naruko simply waved with her usual bright enthusiasm. "I'm home," she called. A few children waved back. And just like that, something shifted, not because of fear, but because of hope. Naruko understood that earning trust would take time. She was ready for that. She would train harder, listen more, and protect her village with patience and compassion. She believed that even long-standing misunderstandings could fade, just like rain clouds drifting away. As evening settled over Konoha, lanterns glowed warmly along the streets. Naruko sat with her friends, laughing softly as they shared stories. No grand celebration was needed. Being together was enough. And so began a new chapter in the story of Naruko Uzumaki, a chapter defined not by shadows of the past, but by courage, kindness, and the promise of a brighter tomorrow. The rain fell softly over the Hidden Leaf village as Lady Tsunade studied the scrolls delivered by animal messengers. The reports were unusual. Patrol teams had encountered a mysterious traveler dressed in red who seemed to be testing the village's defenses. No one had been seriously harmed, but the encounters had left everyone puzzled. Tsunade folded her hands thoughtfully. "First one patrol is startled, then another," she murmured to herself. "Perhaps we should call everyone back inside the village walls until this storm passes. It's best to keep everyone safe." Just then, Shizune hurried into the office, slightly out of breath. "Lady Tsunade. Someone is here to see you." Before Tsunade could respond, a tall figure stepped into the doorway. He wore a crimson coat and carried a dark sword at his side. His expression was calm but serious. Tsunade stood confidently. "State your name and your purpose." The man gave a small bow. "My name is Futeki Uzumaki. I mean no harm to the village. I only ask that you come outside to witness something important." Tsunade studied him carefully. Though cautious, she sensed that this moment required calm rather than conflict. She stepped toward the window, Shizune beside her. Outside, villagers and shinobi were gathering, looking up toward the Hokage monument. Standing atop the stone image of the fourth Hokage were two figures. One wore a green sweatshirt with the hood pulled low, though bright blue eyes were visible beneath it. Beside her stood another young traveler, quiet and watchful. A hush fell over the crowd. The hooded figure lowered her head slightly, then lifted it so everyone could see her face clearly. "Naruko?" Sakura whispered, her voice trembling with surprise. It was indeed Naruko Uzumaki. But she looked different, not angry, not cruel, just older and more serious. Her expression held determination, not the carefree grin everyone remembered. Yet deep within her eyes still flickered the same bright spirit. Naruko's voice carried clearly across the village. "People of the Hidden Leaf," she said, speaking firmly but without hostility, "I have traveled far to learn about my clan's history and the stories of the Whirlpool country. There are many truths we must understand together. I do not come to bring fear. I come to seek honesty, unity, and a future where no one feels forgotten." The villagers exchanged uncertain glances. Tsunade stepped forward. "Naruko," she called, her tone steady, "you are always welcome here. If there are truths to uncover, we will uncover them together. This village is your home." Naruko looked down at the familiar faces, her friends, her teachers, the people who had watched her grow. The tension in her posture softened. "I don't wish to fight," she said gently. "I only want our clan's history to be remembered with respect. And I want to build something stronger than before." With that, Naruko gave a small nod. She and her companion stepped down from the monument using careful chakra control, landing gracefully among the crowd. No one moved aggressively. Instead, there was quiet understanding. From a nearby rooftop, Hinata watched everything unfold. Her heart felt lighter. She had feared something terrible might happen, but instead she saw Naruko standing tall, not as someone filled with bitterness, but as someone who had grown through her journey. Hinata smiled softly. "She hasn't changed," she whispered. "She's just stronger now." As the rain slowed to a drizzle, Tsunade invited Naruko and her companions inside to talk. The village would listen. The Uzumaki legacy would be honored. And Naruko would continue her path, not as someone driven by anger, but as a young hero determined to bring people together. Because that had always been her true strength. And under the gray sky, the Hidden Leaf felt a new sense of hope begin to bloom. Outside of Konoha, the forest stretched wide and quiet, painted in soft shades of green and gold. Hinata followed Higoho carefully along the winding path north of the village. Soon, the rooftops of Konohagakure disappeared behind the trees. But Hinata did not slow down. Her heart was full of hope, because all she wished for was to see Naruko again. Naruko, the bright and determined kunoichi of the village, had always carried a spark of sunshine wherever she went. Even when things were uncertain, she believed in kindness, friendship, and never giving up. "We've arrived," Higoho said gently. The trees parted to reveal a wide clearing. A large campsite stood proudly beneath the open sky. Neatly arranged tents circled the area, and banners fluttered in the breeze, bearing the spiral crest of the Whirlpool clan and the symbol of Uzushio-Gakure. Samurais and ninjas moved about with calm purpose, their expressions peaceful and welcoming. Hinata noticed a faint shimmer in the air surrounding the clearing. It was a protective barrier, woven carefully with chakra, to ensure the camp remained hidden and safe. She admired the teamwork it must have taken to create something so strong and gentle at the same time. As Hinata stepped forward, the people she passed bowed respectfully. Not because she demanded it, but because they recognized her kindness and sincerity. She returned each bow with quiet gratitude. Higoho led her toward the largest tent in the center of the camp. Its entrance was decorated with the familiar spiral symbol. He paused and smiled. "Naruko-sama is inside. She has been waiting for you." He lifted the flap. Inside, the tent was warm and softly lit by lanterns. Maps and scrolls were neatly arranged, but what stood out most was Naruko herself. She stood near a low table, her golden hair tied back in a practical style, her bright blue eyes shining the moment she saw Hinata. For a heartbeat, neither of them spoke. Then Naruko smiled, a wide, joyful smile that could light up even the deepest forest. "Hinata. You made it." Hinata felt her worries melt away. "Of course I did," she replied softly. "I always will." Naruko stepped forward, her expression sincere and full of gratitude. She had been working hard alongside the people of Uzushio-Gakure, helping rebuild connections between villages and teaching younger shinobi about cooperation and trust. She believed strength was not measured by power alone, but by the courage to care for others. "I wanted to show you something," Naruko said eagerly. She unrolled a large map, pointing to small marked areas. "These are places where we're planting new trees and building safe travel routes. No more hidden dangers. Just paths that bring people together." Hinata's eyes widened with admiration. "You're creating bridges between villages." Naruko nodded. "That's what being strong really means to me. Protecting others, building friendships, and making sure everyone has a place to belong." Outside, the camp bustled with quiet purpose. Inside the tent, two friends stood side by side, united not by battle, but by hope. And in that peaceful forest clearing, far from the eyes of the world, a new chapter of friendship and unity began, guided by Naruko's unwavering belief that kindness is the greatest strength of all. Hinata nodded and stepped inside the tent just as Higoho finished tying the flap closed. The soft glow of a lantern lit the space. In the center sat Naruko, studying a large map of the world with deep focus. Her golden hair shimmered in the light, and her eyes were filled with determination and warmth. When Naruko heard the gentle rustle of footsteps, she turned around. The moment she saw Hinata, her face brightened into a smile so genuine that Hinata felt her cheeks grow warm. "Hinata," Naruko said softly, rising to her feet. Hinata walked toward her, and Naruko met her halfway. They wrapped each other in a heartfelt hug, holding on as if making up for lost time. Hinata felt tears gather in her eyes, not from sadness, but from relief and happiness. Being near Naruko again made her feel safe and understood. After a moment, they slowly stepped back. Naruko looked at Hinata carefully, her expression thoughtful. "I'm sorry," Naruko said gently. Hinata tilted her head. "Sorry? For what?" "For not understanding what was right in front of me," Naruko replied. "For chasing after dreams that weren't meant for me while overlooking the friend who stood by my side all along. I should have seen how much you cared. I'm grateful for your patience." Hinata's eyes softened. She placed her hand over Naruko's. "You don't need to apologize," she said kindly. "I could have been braver too. I let my shyness hold me back. But we both grew, didn't we?" Naruko smiled and nodded. "We did. And I'm glad we found our way here." She gently rested her forehead against Hinata's, a quiet promise passing between them. "From now on, we face the world together. We support each other, no matter what." Hinata smiled through happy tears. Together. Outside the tent, the wind carried the scent of distant forests and the promise of new adventures. Inside, the two friends stood hand in hand, stronger not because of grand battles or loud victories, but because they had learned honesty, patience, and courage in their hearts. And from that day on, Naruko, brave, bright, and full of hope, walked forward with confidence, knowing that true strength comes from understanding, kindness, and the bonds we cherish. Hokage Mansion, Council Chamber. Back in the Hidden Leaf Village, the atmosphere felt heavy. Citizens gathered in small groups, whispering worries to one another. Shopkeepers closed early, and academy students stayed close to their teachers. Shinobi moved swiftly but calmly through the streets, offering reassurance and guiding people safely home. Inside the Hokage Mansion, Lady Tsunade stood at the head of the council table. Her expression was steady, though her eyes showed deep concern. Around her sat village elders, clan representatives, and members of the civilian council. Papers were stacked neatly in front of them, but no one paid much attention to the documents. Emotions were running high. "Why hasn't something been done about this yet?" demanded a member of the civilian council, rising from his seat. His voice echoed across the chamber. Tsunade folded her hands calmly. "We are taking action," she replied firmly. "Our shinobi are investigating the situation thoroughly. Acting without clarity could cause more confusion." Another council member leaned forward. "The villagers are frightened. They need to see leadership." "They will," Tsunade assured them. "But leadership is not only about swift action, it is about wise action." Outside the chamber doors, Naruko stood quietly in the hallway. She had not meant to overhear the meeting, but the raised voices carried through the thick wood. Her bright eyes narrowed in determination. She felt the fear in the village too. She had seen it in the faces of children at the academy and heard it in the worried tones of shop owners. Naruko clenched her fists, not in anger, but in resolve. She wanted to help. More than that, she wanted to prove that the Hidden Leaf could stand strong without losing its kindness. Iruka-sensei approached her gently. "Naruko," he said softly, "what are you thinking?" She looked up at him and smiled, though it was a thoughtful smile. "I'm thinking that everyone's scared because they feel alone," she replied. "If we remind them we're together, maybe they won't feel so lost." Iruka nodded. "That's a very Hokage-like thought." Naruko's cheeks warmed slightly, but she stood taller. "Then I'll start acting like it," she said. Without rushing recklessly, she began helping where she could, carrying supplies, guiding younger students, and speaking with families. She didn't promise impossible solutions. Instead, she offered encouragement and reminded everyone that the village had faced hard times before and grown stronger each time. Back inside, Tsunade received reports of Naruko's efforts. A faint smile touched her lips. "Sometimes," Tsunade said quietly to Shizune, "the strongest reassurance doesn't come from orders. It comes from example." As the meeting continued, the council's tone slowly shifted. Fear began to give way to planning. Plans were drafted carefully. Teams were organized thoughtfully. The focus moved from panic to cooperation. By evening, lanterns glowed warmly along the village streets. Though uncertainty remained, the sense of unity had returned. Naruko stood atop a rooftop, looking over her home. She understood something important that day: strength was not only about power. It was about compassion, patience, and the courage to step forward when others needed hope. And in that moment, she felt one step closer to the Hokage she dreamed of becoming. The council chamber of the Hidden Leaf Village was filled with worried whispers. The lanterns glowed softly against the polished wooden floor as leaders from many clans gathered to discuss unsettling rumors. "Troublesome," Shikaku said thoughtfully, resting his chin on his hand. "Naruko wouldn't do something so rash like suddenly attacking us. More likely she would try to buy time until her forces grow larger." Shibuya adjusted his glasses. "Indeed. This could simply be a way to stir anxiety among the people. Perhaps she wants everyone to think she will strike soon. If she were to act, she would most likely approach lands without strong ninja villages, or those less prepared." Tsunade listened carefully, her expression serious but calm. "Agreed. But now we have another problem." She turned her gaze toward Hiashi Hyuga. "The disappearance of Hinata Hyuga." Hiashi flinched slightly, then bowed his head. "I may know the cause." The elders had grown frustrated with Hinata's fierce defense of Naruko. Whenever someone spoke ill of the Uzumaki name, Hinata would confront them. The elders planned to place a control seal upon her to restrain her spirit. A hush fell over the room. Hiashi continued, his voice heavy. Hinata refused. In the struggle that followed, several elders were injured. One elder, who was already frail, did not survive the shock of the confrontation. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Tsunade closed her eyes briefly and sighed. "For now, we must proceed carefully when sending shinobi beyond the village. And perhaps we can find a way to speak with Naruko. I believe there is still good in her heart." Before anyone could respond, a calm voice echoed from the entrance. That will not be possible. Everyone turned. 7 figures stood at the doorway. They wore dark suits beneath long white coats trimmed in silver. Gray capes rested on their shoulders, and simple masks concealed their faces. Their posture was composed, not aggressive. The villagers stepped back nervously. The shinobi stood alert, though no one made the first move. "Who are you?" Sume of the Inuzuka clan demanded. One masked figure stepped forward and bowed slightly. "We are heralds of Naruko-sama. We carry a message from her." The room grew still. "In 5 months," the herald continued evenly, "the 5 great villages will no longer stand as they do now." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Shikaku narrowed his eyes. "Explain." The herald inclined her head. "Naruko-sama does not seek destruction for its own sake. She believes the current system of rival villages breeds fear, secrecy, and endless rivalry. She intends to dissolve the old alliances and replace them with a unified council, one where all lands share resources and knowledge openly." The tension shifted from panic to confusion. Tsunade folded her arms. "And you expect us to believe this is for peace?" "Our leader grew up isolated and judged," the herald replied. "She learned that misunderstanding creates walls. She now seeks to tear those walls down, not with chaos, but with change. However, if the villages resist entirely, she is prepared to force reform." Hyashi spoke quietly. "And Hinata?" A pause. "She is safe," the herald answered. "Hinata chose to leave. She wishes to speak with Naruko herself. She believes Naruko can still be guided toward a kinder path." The room fell silent again, this time thoughtful rather than fearful. Shibi adjusted his glasses once more. "So this is not an announcement of ruin, but a warning of transformation." "You may see it that way," the herald replied. Tsunade stepped forward. "Tell Naruko this, the hidden leaf will not bow to threats. But neither will we ignore an opportunity for peace. If she truly wishes unity, then let her come to the table and speak as a leader, not from the shadows." The herald nodded. "Your message will be delivered." As the 7 figures departed, the tension slowly eased. Shikaku leaned back in his chair. 5 months. That gives us time. Tsunade looked around the chamber, her voice firm yet hopeful. "We will prepare, not for war, but for negotiation. Change can be frightening. But perhaps Naruko's dream is not entirely misguided." Far away, atop a quiet cliff overlooking a vast landscape, Naruko Uzumaki stood beneath the open sky. Her golden hair danced in the wind, and her blue eyes shone with determination. She wore her white cloak with pride, a symbol of the new era she hoped to create. Beside her stood Hinata, calm and steadfast. "Do you think they will understand?" Hinata asked gently. Naruko placed a hand over her heart. "I don't know," she admitted. "But I'll keep trying. I won't let the world stay divided by fear. We can build something better." Her journey was no longer about proving herself. It was about growth, understanding, and creating a future where every child, no matter their background, could feel valued. And so, the countdown was not to destruction, but to a test of courage, communication, and change. They shimmered away from the council chamber, leaving only a quiet stillness behind. The air felt heavy, not with fear, but with uncertainty. The leaders of the village stood in thoughtful silence, wondering what the future might bring. Konoha 12. On a peaceful training field in the Hidden Leaf Village, the young shinobi once known as the Rookie 12 gathered beneath the warm afternoon sun. The breeze rustled the leaves gently, as if the village itself were listening. Some stood quietly, deep in thought. Others spoke with worried voices. "Do you really think Naruko would try to harm the village?" Ino asked softly. Neji folded his arms. "We can't be certain. It's been 3 years. A lot can change in that time." Tenten shook her head. "I don't believe she would choose something like that without a reason." Sasuke spoke calmly. "Sometimes when someone feels alone for a long time, they make choices that others don't understand." The group grew quiet. Everyone knew Naruko had once struggled with feeling different. But they also remembered her bright smile and her promise to protect her friends. Choji looked down at the grass. Naruko always wanted to be acknowledged. Lee clenched his fist with determination. "Then we must believe in her spirit of youth and goodness." Finally, Tenten asked, "What about Hinata?" Neji sighed. "Until we know where she is, we can only hope she's safe." At that moment, an Anbu member appeared in a swirl of leaves. "You are to report to Hokage-sama at once for a special mission." Moments later, the group knelt respectfully before the Hokage atop the mansion. The Hokage's expression was serious but steady. A new threat may be rising, she began carefully. To prevent misunderstanding between nations, we will send messages to the other villages. Each team will travel to a different land. She handed sealed letters to the team leaders. Team Kakashi, you will travel to Kirigakure. Team Asuma, to Sunagakure. Team Kurenai, to Iwagakure. Team Gai, to Kumagakure. Deliver these messages safely and return. The young ninja nodded and leapt away, determined to serve their village with honor. Team Kurenai paused briefly. What about Hinata? Kiba asked. The Hokage placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. We are searching for her. For now, focus on your mission. Trust that we will do everything we can. With that, they departed. Naruko's tent. Far from the village, beneath a sky full of stars, stood a large traveling tent. Inside, Naruko Uzumaki sat quietly at a wooden table. She was older now, her bright hair tied neatly behind her back. Her blue eyes still held warmth, though they also reflected the weight of responsibility. She wore a modest shinobi uniform, clean and practical, with a long cloak bearing the Uzumaki crest. Hinata rested peacefully in a separate section of the tent, unaware of the meeting about to begin. Footsteps approached. 7 cloaked figures entered and knelt respectfully before Naruko. One removed his hood, revealing a young man with long dark blonde hair and calm blue eyes. Kasage Uzumaki, he said respectfully, the message has been delivered. As expected, the Hokage has sent messengers to the other villages. Shall we intercept them? Naruko did not smirk. Instead, she looked thoughtful. No, she said gently. The figures looked up in surprise. If we stop the messages, Naruko continued, we create fear. And fear spreads faster than truth. She stood, walking toward the tent entrance and gazing at the stars. Our goal was never to harm the leaf, she said firmly. It was to make them listen. If the 5 Kage gather, then they will hear the truth about the Uzumaki survivors. She turned back to her followers. We will meet them openly. Not as enemies, but as equals. Kasage lowered his head respectfully. As you command. Naruko smiled faintly. I left the village to find answers. I found family instead. Now it's time to protect both. Outside, the wind carried her words into the night. Naruko Uzumaki was not a villain. She was a young leader learning how to balance hurt feelings, loyalty, and hope. And though the road ahead would be challenging, she believed something with all her heart. Understanding was stronger than fear. Naruko folded her arms and gave a confident, playful smile. Leave that to me, she said brightly. I want to see how much everyone has grown over the past few years. I'm assigning you to guard Hinata-chan and make sure she arrives safely in the Whirlpool Nation. The advisor, Kasage, looked up with curiosity. And you, my lady? He asked respectfully. Naruko turned her gaze toward the horizon, where the sky stretched wide and blue over the village rooftops. I'll remain here for a while, she replied thoughtfully. There are other villages to visit and friendships to strengthen. Some smaller nations could use guidance and cooperation. I want to help them stand on their own feet. Her voice carried warmth and determination rather than ambition. The world doesn't need to be ruled, she continued gently. It needs to be united. The Uzumaki name should stand for hope, kindness, and courage. If we work together, we can build something even greater than power, we can build trust. Kasage smiled, understanding her vision. Naruko had grown into a leader who valued connection over control. She believed that true strength came not from taking over, but from lifting others up. As the wind brushed past her, Naruko felt excited about the journey ahead. She knew there would be challenges, but she also knew that with teamwork, patience, and compassion, every village could shine. Dear YouTube family. That's all for now. If you enjoyed the content and found it valuable, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel to stay updated with everything coming next. Until the next upload, keep watching, keep learning, and stay ahead. Thank you for your support. Regards. 6 Path Weeb.